All right, it's a Tuesday on the Rick Corey Sports Special, and you're saying, "Well, who's that?" Not that guy, because you know that's Adam Gaylor. Who's that? I'm the fat guy who hadn't been with you in about a week. I'm Rick Corey. That is the new head football coach at Jenks, Adam Gaylor. Does that still sound fresh in your mind, Coach?
Sounds odd. Yeah, definitely sounds odd. Love it. Love it, obviously, but yeah, definitely sounds different.
You know, with the history there, you go back to Perry Beaver and Ron Lancaster, and of course Allen, and now Keith. Sitting in that office must carry with it a little bit of I don't want to call it ghosts or anything like that, but there is certainly an aura to being the head coach at Jenks, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I actually worked with Coach Lancaster at Broken Arrow when he went back there in 2007, and of course competed against Coach Trim and Coach Riggs for a long time. Got my tail whipped a bunch by a bunch of good Jinx teams. So yeah, definitely. I tell people all the time, you walk down the hallway here into the defensive office, and you see all the state championship teams, and it's kind of like they're staring at you. It's like they're looking into your soul, saying, you understand the legacy and the things that you've got to carry on, and kind of the pressure that's on you. And then you walk by the case full of 18 gold footballs, and you kind of realize what you're up against. It doesn't take too long to understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you put P's in there. There could be pressure, there's perspective and all that, but it's privilege too, isn't it, Coach?
100%. Absolutely. It's a dream job. There's not very many of these in high school football, and this is certainly a dream job for me.
Yet there are a whole lot of them in this area.
Yeah, no doubt. No
It's been
doubt.
kind of crazy watching them switch. All right,
Yes.
there are going to be a lot of people who don't know your background. So introduce the people watching to Adam Gaylor. Tell us how you started, your family in coaching, where you've been. Just go through the litany.
Well, I'm from Wagner originally.
A
I went to
bulldog,
Arkansas Tech. What's that?
a bulldog.
Yes, yes, through and through, 100%. Got another guy here on staff, Prince McJunkins. It's also a Wagner alum, so feel right at home there too. Went to Arkansas Tech, and then transferred to UCO to played football both spots. First coaching job was at NEO Junior College back in 2003 under Dale Patterson.
Yeah.
Spent a couple seasons there, and then went back to my alma mater. Was Dale Condit's first defense coordinator. 2005 had a nice turnaround. Went from 2-8 to 11-3 state championship game. First time in 50 years. So it was kind of like a dream scenario. Of course, he's won a bunch of games there since then. Does a great job. And then got an opportunity to go back to UCO as a coach. So spent the '06 season under Chuck Langston at UCO. And then one morning after a 6 a.m. workout, I get a phone call from my wife. She's like, do you need anything from the store? And I'm like, no, I'm good. And she says, well, I had to go get a couple things. And by the way, I'm pregnant. So we found out we were going to have a little girl. So my family's from here. Her family's from the Miami area. She graduated from Commerce. Her dad was the head football coach at Commerce for
Mm.
18 seasons. So to get back over this direction, closer to family, my brother lives in Jenks. I took the job at Broken Arrow with Coach Lancaster, Coach Spav, back in '07. So spent 7 years there as a defense coordinator for Coach Lancaster and Coach Spav. And then got the opportunity to get the head coaching job at Westmore in 2014. So was there for a couple of seasons, and mainly for my wife's work. She way better job, way more intelligent than I am. So I needed to take care of her, and she had a job that was just about 15 minutes north of Mustang in Oklahoma City. And so had the opportunity to go be the defense coordinator at Mustang for 3 seasons, and then. Coach Trimble calls me in the spring of 18 after Coach Riggs gets the head coaching job here. Um, talked to him, talked to Coach Riggs. It didn't work out, mainly for personal reasons. We had a really good situation from a family aspect. My wife had an excellent job. And as bad as it was, I had to tell Coach Riggs that I couldn't take the job at the time, for personal reasons, and it was what was better for my family at the time. And so Coach Dombeck, who was the head coach at Mustang, resigns the next year. And I tell people it was kind of like God kind of he had nudged me, and this was kind of like a kick in the pants of, hey, you need to get back to the east side. So came back here in 19 as defense coordinator. and it worked out really well, because from a personal, obviously from a professional aspect, it's an unbelievable place to work. But my father-in-law gets is diagnosed with leukemia 3 years ago. So it put my wife and my kiddos and me close to my in-laws. And then obviously with my wife's situation, having all of our support system here was a huge piece of that. So
Well, you mentioned
great
Julie
history.
multiple times. You'd been on the radio with me. We'd talked to you about her. Not everybody might still know she had a cancer diagnosis. And last I heard, Coach Riggs said that at the banquet you were pretty forward in what your wife did to cancer.
Yes, she dominated it. She's dominated it. I tell people, she's a coach's daughter, and she's a coach's wife. So she's a pretty tough old bird. And it was going to take more than cancer to get after her. So I tell people, just made her, meaner. She got a little bit of an attitude. She's defense coordinator's wife and all that. But no, she's doing great. All of her scans, blood work, checkups have been great. As a matter of fact, she has one this afternoon. So praying for good news from that.
Yeah, well, God bless on that one and good luck there.
Thank you.
How would you describe your style, first of all, as a defensive coordinator? Now, I've broadcast games where you were coaching, so I understand, but people might not understand. And then how will that translate to your overall style as a head coach?
Aggressive. That's one thing that as a defensive guy, you kind of have to be. It's kind of ingrained in you. I've never met a really good defensive guy that was not aggressive. It just kind of part of it. You look back at guys like Buddy Ryan, Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, that aggressive personalities. And so,
Mhm.
my brother was a coach for a long time. He's the one that got me into coaching, as a matter of fact, and kind of taught me. He was a defensive guy, taught me, kind of the ins and outs of it. But he was an aggressive guy as well, and so that's kind of the overall philosophies. Defensively we're going to be aggressive. We're not going to be dumb in how we attack, but we're definitely going to be aggressive and have that aggressive mindset. And I think it doesn't. The kids here are that's their mindset anyway.
Yes, right.
That's the
Yeah.
expectation here at Jenks is we're going to attack and be aggressive. And so um, it's kind of like you get a Mercedes, and you don't want to drive it in the ditch. You just want to put some better wheels on it, maybe some nicer tires, something like that. So hopefully, we're going to add to the great legacy and tradition that's here at Jenks.
I always think it's interesting when a coordinator takes over a head coaching job. Well, you got the thing you do. Does that mean that you extend into the other? Well, you have to because you're the head coach. What will your involvement be there? You're going to hire an OC and tell them go, or how do you going to handle that?
Well, Coach Wilkes, our OC right now, and I've been with him for a while, so he's a pretty aggressive guy too. We've had a relationship for a long time, and so he kind of understands, my mindset, kind of what we want to do. But I'll definitely have a hand in what we do offensively. Um, defensively, we'll hire a defense coordinator, but obviously, I heard from, I remember Dale Patterson telling me, one of these days, Adam, you're going to be a head coach. And one thing you need to remember is, play to your strengths, and
Yep.
you need to be your best assistant coach, as a head coach. So I'll definitely be heavily involved with what we do defensively. It's going to look very similar, just, a different guy calling it. But definitely will be, the guys aren't going to get away from me on that end.
No, I wouldn't think so. When you take a job like this, you certainly talk to people around you and you find out about, kind of how they handled things. And I love to talk to coaches about building programs. And you're coming into a program that's built, but you still want to have your stamp. How do you go about that? I've always found that really interesting.
You know, um, you just I've been around, I've coached 22 years, been around a lot of good coaches. Obviously Dale Patterson, Dale Condit, Keith Riggs, Steve Spavital, Ron Lancaster, and they all kind of had their own style. And so me as a younger coach would, I really like that. I really like how they do this. And so I think you try to do your best to take what you've really liked, what they've done and been successful with, and kind of make it your own, kind of blend them all together, so to speak. And and also, there's a wealth of resources around here with Coach Riggs, and learning from him has been a huge asset into coming into this job, just because of all the lessons he learned from Coach Trim.
Yep. How far ahead do you think it helps with you because you are so familiar with this personnel? I mean, some of the changes, for instance, obviously Antonio to Union, he knows them, but he's not been with them every day. Coach coming to Broken Arrow, Coach Hill, he's been down in Muskogee. You know these kids. How much faster can you hit the ground running?
Yeah, it's not much going to change. We're tweaking the off season a little bit and how we do some of the things, but having that, familiarity with all the players has been huge, and they're very excited. I I'm very loyal, sometimes to a fault. My wife likes to tell me,
Hmm.
but I'm loyal to Coach Riggs. I'm loyal to this program. I'm loyal to these guys. So. Um, it's that relationship, already having that established is will be huge going forward.
What was the moment when, after all the melee had kind of died down, and you're sitting in that office and realize, wow, I'm a head coach. I'm the head coach at Jenks. When did that sink in?
I'm not sure it's sunk in yet, to be honest with you. My head's still swimming a little bit and still kind of underwater. But that night, I talked to my wife, and we got home uh, that evening, and talked about all kinds of stuff. And she gave me a hug, and then I get a phone call from my brother. And he's like, "Man, you didn't tell me any of this." And I was like, "Well, it's kind of been in the works a little bit, but the administration decided, this week to start working on it." And he's like, "Man, congratulations! I'm so proud of you." He goes, "Now don't mess it up." And I said, "Yes, I'm keenly aware of the situation." So maybe that was kind of part of it. It's like, "Oh crap, I've got a large chore ahead of me." But yeah, that was kind of that realization. But also, I'm still on cloud nine, so to speak, and it truly hasn't sunk in just yet.
Yeah, well, we won't quote it, but if you're out there watching, you might want to look it up. Just look up Alan Shepard's prayer, because I think many of us, right before a thing like this, has probably have uttered those things. Last thing I want to ask you about is scheme, because again, I find it fascinating, especially in high school. You don't recruit; these kids come to you. You have a scheme, you have a philosophy, things you want to do. Sometimes you have the talent for it, sometimes you don't quite. How do you, as a coach, adjust to those moments and those things and max talent with your scheme?
That's a great question. I think we're pretty multiple defensively, and again, it's through learning what to do and what not to do, things that have been successful for you, but also having um, learning those various schemes and creating a toolbox to where um, it kind of forces you to be a good teacher. I don't think it's all the calls you have, I don't think are as important as how you teach it and how your coaches teach it, how you apply it and teach it to your kids, where it looks like it's a lot to somebody that's not a player, doesn't understand the system. But, there's, you may have, six pressures, but, five of them are the same to 9 or 10 of the guys, where you're only tweaking a path, you're only tweaking a technique maybe in what they do. And so there's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of carryover from call to call, where there's a lot of it's like teaching, this call is like this call. So it's truly not something new out of the ordinary. And so we kind of front load in the spring our install. So we throw a lot at them. So that way, and we'll review it in fall camp. But however, you're playing against Union or Owasso in Bixby in the playoffs. You haven't ran this call since maybe fall camp, but the kids are familiar with it, and you can reach back into that in case there's, as a defensive guy, you're always reacting to you have to adjust to what the offense does. And so going into a game, there's always plan A, but then, you always have to have plan B, C, D, E, F, G. I mean, it's all the way down the line in case they come out and you're getting stuff that you haven't seen, whether it's a route concept, protection, some kind of run scheme. And so we've always been pretty good with having or tried to have answers for a variety of scheme issues. But I think overall, it's how much you have defensively in is how well you can teach it. I think it all comes to a certain point where it's like your kids are playing slower, they're not understanding it, and it's
Yeah.
like, whoa, timeout. We've got to cut some of this out. I remember my first year here, um, started out not very well. Started out 1-3, had 9 new starters on defense. And then as the year went on, they practiced better and the kids got better. I remember back then it was you had the bye week before the state championship game. So you had
Hmm.
the semis, you had a bye week, and then the finals. And we're walking off after the first Wednesday practice of the Wednesday practice of the bye week, and our starting middle linebacker, super smart kid. I think he's in engineering at University of Washington. Super intelligent kid, really good football player, very smart. We're walking off and we had busted some things, and he's like, Coach, all the new third down stuff we put in, I'm not understanding. I said, well, it's done. We're cutting it. We're going to go back to what we do well. And, so it gets to that point where the kids aren't getting it. I'm not doing a good enough job of teaching it. So I've either got to reteach it or we've got to scrap it and, cut that out where we're running stuff that our kids are familiar with and can do well.
And speaking of that, that teaching starts right now, right?
Yes, yes, sir. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine.
We'll start really getting heavy in the off season right now as far as lifting, running, doing that. We'll have some different teams in the off season and how we structure that, but then we'll get hot and heavy into the X and O's. We'll give them about a month off, and then middle to late January getting right back into it.
There's no such thing as off season in high school football anymore. Probably not in junior high, pee wee, anywhere nowadays, coach. I think we're probably all doing it. Well,
No
it'll be an
doubt.
interesting spring. We'll get back with you in spring and we'll catch up with you and make sure that we can do this with you during the regular season. We appreciate it. Congratulations. When you wait for an offer and you wait for that right moment, and when it's right, it's got to be satisfying. And once again, pass our best on to your lovely wife for with the job she's doing in winning that fight.
Thank you, Rick. I'm praying for your daughter as well,
Thank you.
and praying for her daily. So we appreciate you and thank you very much. Yeah, I'm still haven't came down yet, so I'll let you know when that happens. Maybe a while.